Welcome to our Northeast Craftsman project. We are here today to talk about all things cabinetry.
We are going to talk about space planning and storage when it pertains to cabinets.
We're going to talk about wood cabinetry versus painted cabinetry.
And we're going to talk about what mistakes to try and avoid with planning and education on the front side. Some things to think about before you embark on a remodel for cabinetry is the most important thing is to assess your space. The best way to assess your space is to hire professionals. I know that I think, or my partner thinks, that we can measure a bathroom or a kitchen, but elevations and actually planning for space and flow of traffic and storage is actually a really important skill set. And before you embark on laying out your kitchen, you want to take measurements, what we call as-builts. And those as-builts are measurements of the height, the width of walls, the dimensions that you have to work with that are put to paper.
So some professionals that you could tap into for this, architects, you could tap into the cabinetry maker themselves. They often will do drawings for you.
You can also hire a draftsperson. Sometimes you can even look up kitchen planners. It's all they do is help you design and lay out space for your kitchen remodel.
Yeah, designers often do as well, but they may partner with an architect or they may partner with a cabinetry draftsman. You just have to see what everybody can offer you and figure out what's best.
The most important thing is put together a team. You've got to have a team of people that are familiar with the widths, the depths, the heights, drawer glides, the different type of cabinet openings. So a lot of times you will hear, read, and get advice about making sure you adhere to a chef's triangle. What is that? That is a triangle that the three most important appliances have in relationship to each other. Usually it's a range or a stove, a fridge, and a sink. And if you make a triangle, you're gonna have a really good flow of traffic. So oftentimes designers, builders, and specialty kitchen planners try to achieve a chef's triangle. What would the opposite of a chef's triangle look like? It might look like a fridge being in line with a sink, being in line with a range. It's not super ideal because if you have more than one person in a space or in a kitchen, it ends up being that people are all over each other. So that's why we try to achieve a chef's triangle. Also, in a chef's triangle, usually next to a range, there's countertop space. So when you have a fridge, you open the fridge, you take out the goods that you're going to be working with, set it on a counter, and it's got a great relationship with your range or stove that you're going to be doing in the next step of your cooking process. When I'm addressing the kitchen layout and how the cabinets are going to work with the spaces, we think about how we cook and what utensils or spices that we need. A lot of times you will see that there will be drawers or specialty pullouts that you can access for great cooking utensils and stuff right next to the range, as well as super nice to have spice storage. Something that's really popular now in cabinetry is to use more drawers than in the olden days. We used to do cabinet doors where you would bend down and Great Aunt Tilly would be reaching for the pots and pans or the tops. It's very, very popular to be using drawers for your pots and pans and tops. Really important to take an assessment, actually make a list of the things you need to store in your kitchen. It is customized when you're building and laying out and taking elevations and space planning for your kitchen or bathroom. It is custom to your needs. So if you have a Vitamix or an appliance or an espresso maker that you can't live without, what is the height of that? What is the depth of it? And where are you trying to fit it? It's very popular these days to build appliance kitchens.
Yeah, appliance kitchens are great because they hide all of that away and you can just look at your beautiful space and not feel stressed by all the things that are on your countertops. So you can hide them in here, pull them out when you need them, use them in here, and then when you're done, you just close her on it.
One of the things we liked in this design is that we chose to invest in taking the countertop all the way back to the wall. A cost savings would have been to have the countertop stop here and have the interior of the cabinet show, but there ends up being thresholds and lines that can be kind of clunky and chunky. So it's my advice to make your countertop go all the way back and have it be through all the way in your appliance kitchen. It was an important detail. The number one thing people talk about when we're remodeling a kitchen is the pantry. Nothing gets your juices flowing like a pantry. She wants a big pantry or he wants a big pantry. And what's my pantry gonna look like and where's my pantry gonna be? So pantries are always a big point of conversation. It has been super popular in recent years to use rollout cabinetry and rollout shelving in pantries because of course you can get to the back of each drawer. And so rollout, we usually try to keep the rollout shelving to be at head height because obviously I can't reach that as much, but I can tell you this rollout is a lot easier than a fixed shelf. Usually we make the top 2 or the top 1 shelf fixed because I'm going to need a ladder to get to that anyways.
These cabinets are shaker style, which means there's just some paneling that sticks out.
This is called a style, and people refer to that. Like, do you want a style or do you want a flat front? This is a funny example. It's right next to it because it was so narrow we didn't put a style around it, but this is flat and this has a style, the shaker style.
So do research. Look at different types of cabinetry fronts and see what style fits your style best or the style of your home and go with that.
Flat fronts tend to be more modern and shaker tends to be either traditional but can be very transitional, especially if you have no bevel or detail around the style and you give it a very right angle cut. It tends to be very transitional to modern and clean. This is white oak. This does actually have a stain on it. You can either do clear coat white oak, a stain, which stain means pigment. It's a stain versus clear means no pigment. And you can have different sheens on your cabinet fronts, which would either be flat or matte, or it goes up in glossiness. This happens to be a very low sheen. It's not flat, it's a very low sheen. Now, 911, alarms are going off. What's wrong with my cabinets? Nothing. Wood is a natural resource, and this is not a mistake or an error on anyone's part. It's a natural resource. It is the wood's natural flaws coming through in the wood. So it's nothing to be afraid of. Do your research and talk to your designer, builder, or kitchen planner to identify what the leg of your cabinetry and what you want it to look like. As you can see, the line of the white oak came down and we finished the edge here. We had to fit a vent that came out of the HVAC system from below and to heat and cool this area. We chose not to have a vent in the tile floor and have it exist in the toe kick. What is a toe kick? It is a space that your toe can fit in underneath the cabinet. Sometimes people ask me, like, why do we keep talking about toe kicks? What is that? What does that have to do with the cabinet? It's an indent in cabinetry that allows you to stand close to the cabinet itself. In some cases, we hide vents in the toe kick. One detail that we like to talk about when we're planning for our cabinets is our overhang of our countertop and the relationship to the corners and where your flow of traffic is going. So just a good detail, we usually go 1/2 inch to 1 inch, but talk to your countertop and your cabinet planner to make sure you have that detail laid out with the corners.
So in this kitchen, Teal did a really good job of mixing materials. So she used hardwood here and then painted wood here. So it just gives your eye that extra pop and it really, really, really finishes the space. You'll also notice that the countertops are different, but you just turn your head and you can see that this is a different place. It has a different moment. This is the bar, that is the kitchen. Job well done.
We've got white oak that has a matte flat finish on it. And these are what your cabinet person will say, what type of wood do you want? This is paint grade. This actually comes nude. So it comes unfinished. And when they are delivered and when they are installed, your painter then paints them usually on site. This is called under cab lighting. There's lots of ways to do it. We did this kitchen a while back and these lights are a little bit dated. They're a surface mount light. Now you can get LED strips that are very low profile, dimmable, and that can hide right under here and you don't need as much of a lip in your cabinet design today.
One question I get a lot too is how much would it cost for my painter to paint my cabinetry? And it's actually pretty expensive because you have to put tape around every single edge, all the way around this side, that side, and you have to be really careful not to get the inside. So it takes a lot of prep for your painter before they can actually paint the cabinetry.
It also depends on what the finish of the cabinetry is. A lot of times they need to strip and sand all of the existing wood. Let's say you had an oak bar cabinet that you wanted to paint. They would need to strip it and sand it, and the labor for that is what's costly before they prepped it and primed it for your new color.
People ask us a lot, what type of cabinetry should I buy if I'm just gonna paint my cabinet?
Oh yeah, you wouldn't invest in an oak, a red oak, a white oak, or if you want to do maple or walnut. You'd never invest in that finished product of a nice high-end wood. You actually get what they call paint grade wood. And a lot of times the insides are either melamine, which is less expensive. It's a plastic composite product. Yeah, or your inside is pine. And then your paint grade product yourself, your style and your door is usually maple or pine as well. But it absorbs paint well, you prime it, and then you paint it.
So you just said a word I've never heard before. What the hell is puck lighting?
Yeah, so puck lighting comes from hockey puck. It's a circle, it's a small light. You have to plan ahead for puck lighting. Puck lighting is lighting that goes in at the top of your cabinets and lights the shelving down. In order for the lighting to go through the cabinet shelving, it has to be what? Glass. Obviously, if those shelves were wood, it wouldn't have the same appearance or the same experience with lighting. So what happens is there's a transformer for those lights that is hidden either under here or up there. There are 2 holes drilled. You plan for the electrical of that at install. So when your paint grade cabinets are delivered, your electrician has to make sure all those holes are drilled and you're ready to go prior to paint.
I always just called them cabinet lights.
Okay. Expert tip. Don't forget to ask your cabinet maker or your designer, whoever you're working with, to get samples of your white oak or your walnut or your red oak or whatever the hell you've chosen. Get samples in the house. We wanted to see the tone of how red or brown or what the experience of this wood, this maker, and this species and how it was going to react in this space. Get samples. Additionally, if you are staining or clear coating or painting for that matter, if you're doing anything to the cabinets, bring them in the home, bring them to the space, and test out your stain variations so you can choose the one that you actually like.
The number one thing you want to think about before you start a remodel is your budget and planning for cabinetry in particular, because it's very expensive.
Well, cabinetry is expensive because of all the TLC that goes into it. There's manufacturing, there's labor, all these guys. I've been in these workrooms where these guys are cutting the joint and making the joints and putting together these cabinets. It's the labor, it's the materials, it's the delivery, and it's the install. So it is an expensive craft. If you're spending about $100,000 on a kitchen remodel, plan to spend around 50% of that on your custom cabinetry. And it's well worth it. Look at this kitchen. It's most of the kitchen. You just have to make smart choices in the rest of the spaces.
Yeah, and that's if it is custom cabinetry and it's solid wood. I mean, you can get other options. Do your research. There are some woods that will be a little bit more expensive than others.
It will matter what part of the country you live in. So I think if white oak might be more accessible in the Pacific Northwest, whereas it might be a little bit more challenging to get certain species of woods and certain grades of walnut in other parts of the country. So you can do your homework on your wood deliverables, but just know that you can either get white oak or you can get paint grade delivered, but by the time you paint it, it ends up being almost equal in price. Maybe a little bit cheaper for paint grade, but not much.
So MDF is a great material for a place where you're not going to be, there's no water coming in. So kitchens would not be a good place. Mudrooms would not be a good place.
Bathrooms.
We have it in a bedroom in one of our projects because it's on the back side of a wall that very rarely would there be water in that space.
Right. MDF expands and contracts and actually breaks apart when it's exposed to water, so you don't want to use it in any spaces that, like a kitchen or bathroom, that are exposed to water. Let's say you wanted to create some more color in your kitchen and you wanted your surround cabinets to be all white oak, but you wanted your island to be paint grade. That's doable. That is common, and it's not a design, hell no. It's a design, sure, if you want to, put the look together and see if it works, and you can actually flip-flop that. You could do paint grade surround and your island be white oak. Just please keep in mind, wherever you have traffic and kids and knocking and banging and putting pans away, you're gonna have nick marks with paint grade materials. What's easier to maintain, wood or paint grade? And the answer is absolutely wood, because it doesn't show as much chips. It's easy to repaint cabinetry, but wear and tear is not gonna show nearly as much as your paint.
And painted cabinetry gets dings all the time, so you're constantly going to be repainting your cabinetry, whereas with wood, you're not going to notice it, doesn't happen as often because it's a harder material, it doesn't chip.
And you also just gotta let it go. With paint, with wood cabinetry, you might see a ding, it doesn't show so much, you just gotta let it go.
It's kind of like marble, right?
It's
like
the
you
Carrara
use
marble
it and
thing.
you know there's
Just
going to
cut
be
on it.
dings in it, but it's a good material, it's strong, it's sturdy, it's
Use
not
it.
gonna ding
It's
as
not gonna
much
be perfect.
as painted wood.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to our YouTube today about cabinetry. We hope you learned something new.
Follow, subscribe, and share. If you want to learn more about cabinets, hardware, countertops, check out some of our other videos.
We have countertop video and we have cabinet hardware video. Check them out and yeah, check them out.